We've got breaking news into CBS Sports HQ. The Mets acquiring ace Freddy Peralta from the Brewers. That's per multiple reports. New York is sending back top prospects Brandon Sproat and Jet Williams to Milwaukee in the deal. They're also getting back righty Tobias Myers. The move gives the Mets an ace at the top of the rotation that faltered last year as New York missed the playoffs. And for more, we welcome in our resident World Series champ, Will Middlebrooks, and CBS Sports MLB analyst Matt Snyder. And the Mets, let's be honest, they've had a busy offseason, but saying goodbye to longtime members of their franchise, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, and Edwin Diaz. Starting pitching, though, fellas, one of their biggest issues last year during that disappointing season, and now you're adding Freddy Peralta. Well, I want to come to you first. What do you make of the addition, but not just that, also what New York had to give up?
Yeah, so I mean, first things first. I mean, the Mets fans were going through it in November and December, and then you lose Pete Alonso as he goes to Baltimore, and over the last week, I think they've kind of made amends with their fan base, right? You add a frontline starter in Peralta, you add the big bat in Bo Bichette, you add the center fielder in Luis Robert Jr. So I think they're feeling much better. I think Matt will tell you too. They still need help with this. I think there's a lot of question marks still with this rotation. Peralta at the top. You have Manaea, you have Senga, you have McLean, you have Peterson, and you have Clay Holmes. You have guys who have great upside, but haven't done it long enough, at least as starters in this league. Manaea, Senga, these guys have good stuff when they're healthy, but health has been a big issue with them. So there are arms there. There is potential there. They made all the right moves this week to get back in line and try to compete with the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the screen right there and you see those names, you could paint the picture that it's going to end up being a really, really good rotation, because we've seen Manaea a couple of years ago with the Mets was great down the stretch. We've seen Senga throw at a very, very high level if he could stay healthy for a whole year. David Peterson was an all-star last year. McLean looks like he has ace potential. And then Freddy Peralta, we've seen he is an ace. He's a playoff caliber ace. And I just named 5 guys right there. And you got Clay Holmes. You've got the upside of Jonah Tong. So you could see, hey, if things all kind of click and break right with this group, even if we need to throw innings limits on a few guys here, you could totally see this being a top shelf rotation. Of course, as I've said for years, when you have teams with this many guys that have this many question marks on them, not every single question is going to be answered in the positive. So they're just looking for a majority of the questions to be answered in a positive. And if that happens, once we get to September and they're hoping October, you're going to have 4 or 5 of those questions that were answered in a positive. And then they have a pretty good rotation heading toward October.
Okay, a positive answer is getting that playoff caliber ace, but nonetheless, not all issues completely solved. But overall, just looking at this Mets offseason, they did add Bo Bichette, Luis Robert Jr., Marcus Semien, and Jorge Polanco, Devin Williams. That's just to name a few. But Matt, what do you make of the job President of Baseball Operations David Stearns has done, just kind of reshaping this team?
Well, he definitely didn't sit on his hands. He was aggressive. It looks totally different. It started with that trade where there were a lot of other pieces involved, but it was ship Nimmo out, get Marcus Semien back. Then Pete Alonso they let walk. They replaced him at first base with Jorge Polanco, who has never played first before. Now Bichette is going to third, where he has never played before, and I'm sure Will can attest that it's not that easy to play third base in the majors, especially if you have never been there before. They're definitely different. It's going to be, we still have Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto at the top of the order, but then after that, it's a lot of new faces. It's going to be very interesting. They're talented. They certainly have talent. This looks like a playoff caliber roster right now, but there are questions. I mean, Marcus Semien looks like he's hit his decline here in the last 2 years. Luis Robert is always a question mark. We know the upside, but how much is he going to be injured? How well is he going to play when he is on the field? How's Bichette going to acclimate to third? How's Polanco going to acclimate to first? Again, much like the rotation, questions all over the place, but a lot of talent.
Well, yeah, and I would, just to back up you, Matt, I mean, I think the fan base and the organization can be pretty happy with the moves that have been made. Did they improve? Yes, they absolutely did. They assessed some issues they had, some holes they had, some voids they had after guys left. And there's got to be a deep love from David Stearns with Peralta. Let's not forget, he traded for him in 2015 when he was just a teenager and brought him over to Milwaukee. So he loves this guy, and there's a lot of reasons to love him. I do think this team's going to be competitive. I really do. And I'm not so sure they're even done yet. Let's be honest. With that ownership group and Steve Cohen and then the money they throw around, let's not forget the guys that are out there like Framber Valdez and arms that are still available for these teams that have question marks in their rotation. So I wouldn't say they're done yet because they like to spend money. And the New York Mets are in a really tough division. Now you've got to think Atlanta's going to be back in the mix this year as well.
Yeah, certainly like to spend money. We've seen that happen in the past, having one of those big payrolls in the National League. But, Will, I do want to go back to a little bit of what you were just talking about, because you said it's possible they could be doing a little bit more. But let's look at this current team. Do you think the Mets have maybe done enough to compete with the likes of, I'm looking at the Dodgers and I'm looking at the Phillies, and compete for an NL pennant?
Nobody's competing with the Dodgers.
Okay, fair.
I mean, let's just leave the Dodgers out of this, and we'll see if maybe you can get hot and beat them in the playoffs. But for right now, you look at the grind of 162, and all right, do I have players that can post and give me 150 games and keep my main core players on the field? And you look at guys like Lindor and Soto, Bichette, and Marcus Semien as well. He has had injuries in the past, but the last couple seasons he's played more. You have these main core guys that are on the field posting, and that matters through the grind of 162 when you are playing the Bryce Harpers of the world and the Ronald Acuna Jr.'s down in Atlanta, and you're dealing with that NL East, which is a beast. It's tough, and you got to have your superstars on the field. So I'm not ready to say they're going to compete with the best of the best yet, but I would say what they've done this week has put them in a good spot to be very competitive.
They're 100% a playoff contender. I mean, if you look at last year's playoff teams, they're definitely better than the Reds right now. Of course, they were better than the Reds last year, or they should have been, and they choked down the stretch. But the Braves are going to jump right back in the mix. And other than that, I mean, we're talking about Phillies, Braves, Mets. We'll see on the other two teams in the East. And in the Central, you're talking about the Brewers and the Cubs are still looking like they're going to be contenders. Reds are probably going to contend, but I think the Mets have more talent than them. You go to the West, obviously Dodgers, Padres are going to be competitive again. But I think you can make the argument that the Mets right now are better than the Padres look. I don't think the Giants look as good as the Mets, for example. So they look like at least a fringe playoff team to me right now, if not a little bit more. We'll see how everything gels once the season gets going.
I think we're all in agreement. Plenty of talent on this roster, but fans are eager to see this talent maybe translate to October baseball. But I do really want to switch gears to the Brewers side of things, because we've seen Milwaukee kind of do this in recent years, trading ace Corbin Burnes to the Orioles before he became a free agent. Now you're sending Freddy Peralta away a year before he's a free agent. So, Matt, what did you just make of this strategy for a team that's competing for division titles?
Yeah, I mean, it's what they do. I mean, we saw it with Devin Williams, Corbin Burnes, Josh Hader. It's a churn thing with the Brewers, and once he gets you get a guy 1 year away from free agency, they're going to move him. And it looks like what they got back between Sproat, Jet Williams. Williams is a really talented little guy who can play a lot of up the middle positions, and he hits for power. I'm sure the Brewers will find a way to make him look very successful. And if you look at the rotation right now, Brandon Woodruff, we know what he can do. Jacob Mizrowski, we've seen the talent on display already. Quentin Priester, very good year last year. And then Chad Patrick and Logan Henderson, both youngsters last year who showed what they could do at the big league level. It's going to end up being a really good rotation, and I think it would be a fool's errand to write the Brewers off right now or anything just because they traded Freddy Peralta, because we've seen it, and we've seen them bounce back every time. This is just what they do. I could probably talk a lot longer about how annoying it is that they obviously could pay Peralta $8 million this year and keep him and go for the World Series title when they just made the NLCS. But we'll leave that aside because we're used to seeing this is just how they do things. It's their MO.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I mean, why not? I mean, I guess they like the return right now, and the Mets are aggressive, and they like those two players. Maybe they had those towards the top of their list for if these are the guys, we make the move. But why not at least use them for half the season, and then once July comes around, you start looking around. All right, are we a playoff contender? Where are we as a team? Now we can move him when teams are, the need is maybe even higher for those contenders. But they like these guys, and look, young players thrive under Pat Murphy. Pat Murphy has the it factor as a manager. I got to know him when I was over in the Padres organization in 2015, and he was the interim manager at AAA. I got to deal with him there, and just what he can do to get the most out of his players is why they're okay having a young team where he can mold these guys. You can sprinkle in some vets here and there. But I'm with you, Matt. I think Milwaukee maybe should have held on to him a little bit, at least till July, and then see where they're at.
Yeah.
They had the best record in baseball last year. I mean, come on.
We'll see how they bounce back, maybe without their ace. But the Mets, they get one. And Mets fans, I'm certain, happy to see this move being done. But as always, fellas, good stuff. This is only just the beginning. We got plenty more to go. Thanks for stopping by, fellas. Taking a look at the shortest odds to win the World Series. Well, if you're looking for the Mets, they're tied for the fourth shortest odds at plus 1,400, tied with the Blue Jays and the Phillies. But as you'd expect, Will said it. Nobody's competing with the Dodgers. Heavy favorites plus 220 to go back to back to back.